Hey everyone, this is the Mana Source. I'm Armstrong, and welcome to our deck tech of the Hydra event deck. After OP Chris and I took on the Hydra and successfully won our Slayer cards, we decided we were going to take apart the Hydra event deck and do a little deck tech, show you what to expect. Now, if you don't want to be spoiled on how the deck works, if you want to face the Hydra unknowing, then we'd advise you put off this video until a later date. And then maybe catch up and see if there were any cards that didn't come out when you face the Hydra. But if you want to prepare yourself for the Hydra, then this is it. So let's start with the heads. 5 of the 15 unique cards in the Hydra deck are heads, and 11 of those cards are just the basic Hydra head. Now the Hydra head is a 0/3, and each of the Hydra heads has a Hero's Reward ability that gives you something special when you slay the head. The basic Hydra head's Hero's Reward is that each player gains 2 life. If you saw our video of facing the Hydra, you know that how damaging the heads works is when you attack the Hydra or do anything that would damage that player, instead you choose one of the Hydra heads to do that damage to. So attacking with a creature with 3 power, attacking with multiple creatures whose power adds up to 3, any of that would be enough to kill one of the Hydra heads. And then whenever you do kill a Hydra head, it has a chance to grow up to 2 new heads. 2 cards are revealed off the top of the Hydra deck, and if any of them are heads, they're put directly onto the battlefield. Any of the sorceries revealed like that are just put into the graveyard without being cast. Now, the other Hydra head that we have 4 of is the Ravenous Brute head, which is the first of the 4 elite Hydra heads in the deck. The Ravenous Brute head is a 0/6, and its Hero's Reward is slightly more rewarding to compensate. In addition to each player gaining 2 life, each player also draws a card when a Ravenous Brute head is slain. Now, what makes the elite heads unique compared to the basic heads is that the elite Hydra heads deal 2 damage to each player each turn, whereas the regular heads only deal 1 damage each turn. And that damage only occurs if the Hydra head is untapped, meaning that if you have any ways to tap down creatures, that's a way to prevent yourself from taking damage from the Hydra heads. The Philosopher Hero card springs to mind. Now, the other 3 elite creatures, the other 3 elite Hydra heads are unique. And they're all 0/8s, and they all have some sort of special ability. The Savage Vigor head says, at the beginning of the Hydra's end step, reveal the top card of the Hydra's library, and the Hydra casts that card. Now, the Hydra already reveals the top card of its library and casts it each turn, so the Savage Vigor head basically doubles the Hydra's pace. It says, instead of gaining 1 head a turn, maybe I'll gain 2 heads. Maybe I'll get to do 2 really nefarious things to the player. And the unique elite heads that are 0/8s also have bigger Hero's Rewards. For all 3 of them, the Savage Vigor head, the Shrieking Titan head, and the Snapping Fang head, the Hero's Reward grants each player 4 life in addition to drawing a card. The Snapping Fang head is the last unique head, and its special ability is that at the beginning of the Hydra's end step, it deals 1 extra damage to each player. So that's it for the heads in the Hydra deck. Now let's cover the majority of the deck, which is the sorceries. Most of the sorceries involve doing something damaging to the player or giving the Hydra some extra way to grow additional heads. So we have Disorienting Glower here, which silences players until the Hydra's next turn. It says players can't cast spells until the Hydra's next turn. Next we have Distract the Hydra. Now Distract the Hydra is a fun, flavorful little card, though you can imagine it's not so fun if you're low on creatures. Each player who sacrificed a creature that way gets to tap down one of the Hydra's heads, preventing it from dealing damage that turn. However, each player who doesn't tap down a Hydra's head by not sacrificing a creature has to take 3 damage instead. Now, it's a flavorful little card because it basically says, hey, if you want to take some poor sap on your side of the field and throw it to a Hydra, that'll keep it distracted for a turn. But if not, it's just going to attack you. Next we have Grown from the Stump. Now, Grown from the Stump is a sort of Hydra's regrowth card. So if there are at least 2 heads in the Hydra's graveyard, you can take exactly 2 of those cards and put them back on the battlefield. But if there aren't that many cards in the graveyard, then the Hydra grows its head a different way. Instead, you reveal cards from the top of the Hydra's deck until you reveal a head card and then put it onto the battlefield. All the other cards that you reveal that way go into the Hydra's graveyard. Hydra's Impenetrable Hide is pretty simple. The Hydra toughens up, and each of the heads gain Indestructible until the end of the Hydra's next turn, which means that the player is unable to do anything to destroy them. Nekked Angle is a little more complicated. If there are 5 or more Hydra heads, 2 of them get tangled up, so they get tapped down, and they don't untap during the Hydra's next untap step. Apparently it takes Hydras quite a while to get their necks untangled. However, if the Hydra doesn't have that many heads yet, then you reveal cards from the top of the Hydra deck until you reveal another head card. That head card goes onto the battlefield, and all the sorceries go into the graveyard. Noxious Hydra Breath gives the players a choice, and depending on the situation, the choice may or may not be obvious. Either each player takes 5 damage from the Hydra, or you have to destroy each tapped non-head creature. So if it's early in the game and you get this card, say nobody has a tapped creature yet, like what happened to us yesterday, then you obviously choose that option and escape unscathed. But otherwise, depending on what your board state is like, it may actually be better just to take the 5 damage. Now here we have Strike the Weak Spot, which is one of the few cards that gives the players a real opportunity to strike back from the Hydra deck. Correspondingly, there's only 2 of them. Now, Strike the Weak Spot destroys a head, and if it was an elite head, the Hydra gets to take an extra turn. So you have to be careful with which head you destroy, lest you give the Hydra another chance to bite down on you. So how Swallow the Hero Whole works is, each player exiles a creature, but then until the end of the Hydra's next turn, if you destroy a Hydra head, you free the creature that you exiled. Torn Between Heads is a hero getting torn apart between 2 of the Hydra's heads. So you take 2 of the Hydra's heads and tap them, and they don't untap during the Hydra's next untap step. But then each player takes 5 damage from the Hydra. And then our last card here is Unified Lunge, which is the Hydra just using all of its heads to lunge in and deal that much damage to each player. And that doesn't require the heads to tap or anything, so it's a particularly dangerous card to run up against, especially if the Hydra started to grow out of control. So that's the 15 cards of the Hydra deck. So if you are still yet to face the Hydra, hopefully this will give you an advantage when you do so. This has been the Mana Source. I'm Armstrong. We'll see you next time.